Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
Do you ever feel like you just don't have the time to sit down and read the news every morning? Sometimes things get so hectic you can't even scroll through your feeds while you're trying to get ready. A podcast from Boise State Public Radio has you covered. I'm George Prentice, and I want to invite you to check out The Connector every weekday morning. You can get up to speed on all of the Idaho news you need to start your day without ever interrupting your morning routine. All you have to do is hit play. That's The Connector from Boise State Public Radio. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.
More Idaho Matters now from the studios of Boise State Public Radio News. I'm Gemma Gaudette. Idaho has a submarine. Well, it's really the Navy's submarine, but the new USS Idaho carries the name of the Gem State, and many Idahoans have had a hand in her creation. She was christened last year and is going through sea trials right now, and the plan is to have her commissioned and on duty by the spring of next year. And a lot of the cutting-edge stealth technology on the submarine came from Bayview, Idaho, on the shores of Lake Pend Oreille. And Idaho has a lot of ties and history with the U.S. Navy. Richard Colburn is the USS Idaho commissioning chair, and he's joining us today to tell us more about our very first Idaho submarine. Nice to have you on the program.
Thanks, Gemma. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. So tell us about the submarine. How big is it? Where was she built?
So the primary final assembly is being done in Groton, Connecticut. Components for the submarine are actually manufactured all over the United States. The major sections were built at Newport News in Virginia and also in Groton, Connecticut. But the final assembly was done in Groton, and as you mentioned, the ship is in the process of undergoing sea trials right now.
So why was the submarine named Idaho?
Well, it's pretty common for U.S. Navy ships to have namesake either states or cities or named after prominent politicians. So this is actually the fifth time a ship has been named for Idaho. The last one was Battleship 42 that fought in World War II, and it was commissioned in 1919, so over 100 years ago.
And we talked on our program yesterday about how nuclear submarines, a lot of the parts and pieces were kind of invented in eastern Idaho, but our state has a lot of other ties to the Navy. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. In fact, there's an incredible Navy history in Idaho. Idaho has probably more Navy history than all but about 6 or 7 states in the country, which is counterintuitive, but no, very amazing nonetheless. So after the attack on Pearl Harbor at the beginning of World War II in 1941, the Navy had to dramatically increase the amount of infrastructure it had, but they also wanted to make it less susceptible to potential attacks from the coast. So Idaho was one of the primary beneficiaries of that, and so Camp Farragut was the second largest of 7 Navy boot camps in the United States, and it was on the shores of Lake Pend Oreille. University of Idaho was a radio operator training because it was the only student-operated radio station in the Pacific Northwest. So 4,000 radio operators were trained there. So the amount of tourism dropped dramatically, and so the Navy actually took over the Sun Valley Lodge and converted it into a convalescent hospital. 6,500 sailors and Marines did their rehab there. And then the Navy built an ordnance plant in Pocatello, Idaho, and it was the only facility west of the Mississippi that could refurbish battleship guns. And so every battleship gun in the Pacific Theater came to Idaho multiple times to be refurbished and re-rifled. When you re-rifle a gun, you have to go test it. And so the Navy set up the ARCO Proving Ground, and that's what actually became the Idaho National Lab. So if it wasn't for the Navy, there would be no Idaho National Lab, and there would be no State Park Farragut.
So I mentioned that you're the part of the commissioning committee. Can you talk to us about what that is, what you do, and how do you help the Navy build a submarine?
Well, we don't actually help build the submarine, but what we do is we facilitate the relationship between the submarine and its namesake.
Mm.
And for the commissioning itself, the Navy is legally only allowed to pay for the 1 hour ceremony. But there's a lot more that goes into the commissioning. There's several receptions. And we brought the crew out to Idaho 8 different times to familiarize them with Idaho, the spirit, the beauty, and culture of the state and its people. We even brought the crew out, a couple members of the culinary team, to train them on how to cook Idaho cuisine at the Sun Valley Culinary Institute in Sun Valley. And that's where they learned how to cook elk steaks and baked potatoes and potato bread. Not only that, but we took them to a lamb farm, a mushroom farm, and a trout farm in the Hagerman.
And that was because the first meal on board, correct, is what really reflects Idaho.
Oh, well, not only for the first meal, but the ship is going to be going all over the world. And so, dignitaries, prime ministers, presidents of different countries are going to come down to the Idaho when it pulls into port. And one of the things we raised money for was what we call habitability improvements, where we're making the inside of the submarine look like Idaho. So we wanted these dignitaries not only to get a look at what Idaho looks like, but we also wanted them to get a taste of Idaho when they come down to the USS Idaho.
And so talk to us about how you make the submarine look kind of like Idaho. I mean, will you have murals? What will that look like?
So what we did is we partnered with Idaho Public TV, and we had over 2,000 photo donations, with the understanding that we were going to take 30 or 40 of these photos and either mount them as artwork throughout the submarine or do murals with vinyl wraps. And so, for example, the port bulkhead or wall in the crew's mess will be a panoramic of the Sawtooth Mountains. On the crew serving line will be a panoramic of the Palouse. On the crew drink line, the lockers below it will be a panoramic of Shoshone Falls. We have dedicated the medical office to Sun Valley because of the tie to the Sun Valley Convalescent Hospital. So in the medical
Mm.
office will be murals from the Sun Valley area, kind of classic, Sun Valley ski posters, if you will, as well as, photographs from the old Battleship 42 sick bay. One of the things we're doing is that each of the berthing areas we're dedicating to an Idaho city and to an Idaho warrior. So the commanding officer stateroom will be dedicated to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and Colonel Pappy Boyington, the Marine Corps colonel that received the Medal of Honor for his service in World War II. And so there'll be scenes of Coeur d'Alene and of Pappy Boyington in the commanding officer stateroom. The XO's stateroom will be dedicated to Boise, Idaho, and Colonel Ed Too Tall Freeman, who was a Army helicopter pilot in Vietnam, also received the Medal of Honor.
And before I let you go, what's next for the USS Idaho? When will it be up and running?
So, well, it's up and running now in sea trials, but it's not fully certified for combat operations, and that will be occurring over the next month or two. And then the commissioning is the final step where it's officially brought into the fleet, and we're expecting that to be in the April-May timeframe of 2026. So once the Secretary of the Navy chooses the official date, on our website, folks will be able to go on and request a ticket from the U.S. Navy to attend the commissioning in Groton, Connecticut. So we're looking forward to that, and we're busy making preparations for the various receptions and activities that will occur at the commissioning itself.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time to talk with us about this. We've been speaking with Richard Colburn, the USS Idaho commissioning chair, and he's been talking about Idaho's first submarine, the USS Idaho. You've been listening to Idaho Matters from Boise State Public Radio. I'm Gemma Gaudette.
Sources and methods, the crown jewels of the intelligence community. Shorthand for how do we know what's real? Who told us? If you have those answers, you're on the inside, and NPR wants to bring you there. From the Pentagon to the State Department to spy agencies, listen to understand what's really happening and what it means for you. Sources and Methods, the new national security podcast from NPR.